Great, good morning. How's everybody doing today? Great. Hey, thanks so much for joining us today for this retail breakout session. My name's Jeff Bramlett, and I'm a principal consultant within the consumer vertical of AWS Professional Services, focused on the broad consumer products and services industry. Today we are really privileged to be able to share two of our customer journeys with you. So you only have to listen to me talk for a little bit, and the much more valuable content here will be from them, so that you can see kind of an example of what their individual journeys look like. I'm going to start with some brief introductory remarks, just to kind of set the stage for what we see as an industry perspective on retail with regard to this journey. And after that, we'll go ahead and we'll have Michael Fagan and Brian Kozan from Kmart Australia and AWS Skills Guild, respectively, come up and have a discussion about their innovation process. And then they'll be followed by Jesse Carstens, who's the Director of Application Technology for Deckers Brands. So from a construct perspective, we'll start at industry level, zoom down to retailers, and then talk about the brands and close out that way. So that's sort of the roadmap for today. I would be remiss if I didn't also mention that for those of you that want to double click down into this a little bit more deeply tonight, at 5:30 in the MGM, they're going to be, Kmart Group Australia is going to be doing a deep dive on their data platform, including a demo, and would definitely encourage you guys to attend that. So I wanted to start with sort of how we view the retail industry from an AWS lens. I think the best way to frame this, at least initially, is through what I see as our biggest differentiator, which is that we were born from retail. If you look at the AWS origin story, it was largely driven by some of the same challenges that a lot of our customers are now going through in the retail industry. The need to move more rapidly, to be able to innovate, to have an agile infrastructure that allowed us to innovate and decouple a lot of these highly dependent services through a monolithic database. Secondly, we're built for retailers. We get the question all the time about competitive issues and so forth, but we've built a lot of trust with our retail partners because of that retail heritage. We're giving you, our customers, we're trying to give you a 20-year head start on what that journey looks like because we went through it. And what I like to point out is, that if we were, looking at this through a competitive lens, we wouldn't be out there sharing these services, things that we learned in Amazon retail and now offer as AWS products and services. So just kind of a broad level kind of view of the industry here. We always look at starting with the customer. That's sort of one of our key leadership principles, is start with the customer and work backwards from there. Customer behavior and expectations have really evolved, and they continue to evolve more and more rapidly, with expectations about the speed, the level of personalization, all the way from end to end, from purchase decision to fulfillment of an order, have really continued to increase. Jeff Bezos has always liked to say that our customers are delightfully dissatisfied, and that's a great thing, right? Like, we can go out there and harness that to innovate on their behalf, and we don't have the luxury of sort of standing still there. Journeys matter. We've long pursued this sort of elusive single view of the customer across channels, right? Like that end-to-end purchase journey, what that looks like. And so that's something that we want to talk about a little bit today. We're going to talk about challenges too, and I'm going to highlight 3 specific challenges that I think will provide sort of a thematic roadmap for what you'll hear the rest of the day. We'll talk more about those in a minute. And then we'll also focus on what AWS how we help with the how. It's great to talk about, sort of the perspective, but we really want to get down into the how. And you'll hear a little bit of that today, and you can see some more detail on that tonight at the 307 session I mentioned earlier. And then lastly is we really want to enable our customers to be ready to lead, right? Like, that customer journey is an opportunity for our retailers and our brand owners to lead in that journey. So the 3 primary challenges that we see out there that we'll touch upon in more depth today, starting with technical debt. So technical debt is frequently cited. So 70% of CXOs called technical debt is one of their biggest limitations, specifically around the ability to innovate with legacy structures and IT budget paralysis from the requirement to maintain those IT structures in a legacy standpoint. 69% of them specifically called out the budget issue, right? The total cost of ownership, and how that really can inhibit their ability to innovate. Secondly is the fragmented view. So again, the elusive view of the single view of a customer journey across channels, across portions of the purchase journey, from consideration through to fulfillment, for example. So the same survey cited 16, on average, there's 16 different systems that feed this data to our retail customers, and 51% of them said that most of those systems don't efficiently talk to one another to afford them that ability to form that single view. And then lastly, we'll talk a little bit about the transformation disconnect. So when surveyed, CXOs said that the number one focus for innovation is artificial intelligence and machine learning to enable things like personalization, forecasting, all the sort of the nuts and bolts of what makes that end-to-end journey work. However, on average, that priority ranked as number 8 in their budget exercises, in their planning. And a lot of that, we believe, is because there's really not a good guide on how to actually do that, how to actually deliver on that desire. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Brian and Michael.
Thank you very much, Jeff. Thanks, Michael. So thank you very much for having us. And Michael, thank you very much for coming to reInvent and sharing the stage with me. Now these brands, Kmart and Target, would be very familiar to everybody in the audience, I'm sure. But maybe you want to tell us a little bit about Target and Kmart Group in Australia.
Yeah, so firstly, thank you to you and to AWS for the opportunity to come to Las Vegas. So Kmart and Target are brands that we've had in Australia for 50 and 90 years respectively. And there's no relation whatsoever to the Kmart US or Target US brands, other than having very similar names. So Kmart is probably the best performing department store and retail, non-food retailer in Australia. We sell all kinds of clothing for men, women and children, sporting goods, toys, and a variety of homewares. And we're focused on the value end of the segment. So our tagline will be the lowest prices in the market. Target, think more like a H&M, so great quality, great value on trend clothing, much more geared towards an apparel segment, but also with some homewares for sale.
Awesome. So your journey with AWS has been going on for quite some time. Is that right?
Yes. So we're at least 50 years old. So we've got quite a lot of legacy and technical debt that Jeff referred to earlier on. That's a problem that we have. And about 3 years ago, we started on the cloud journey. So Andy Jassy mentioned yesterday, so as people get started, there's a bit of tire kicking, there's a bit of dipping your toe in the water, and that was really us for the first 18 months or so, where we didn't really do a whole lot. But I think we reached an inflection point about a year ago. So as we brought the group together, so Kmart and Target had the same owner in Australia, same parent company, and we decided to bring together the technology teams. And nearly it may not have been the first week, but certainly in the first month of doing that, I had 3 communications from 3 different vendors. So one was an audit request, and anybody who works in retail knows what an audit request really means. The second was a straight up increase in licensing fees. And then I had another communique from AWS. I said, here we go, I'm going to get 3 in a week. But in all fairness to Matt Couchy and the AWS Australian account team, they said, hey, you're doing this with us and you're spending this much money, but if you did it a different way, you could cut your spend in half. And I nearly fell off my chair. So it's not often the vendor will come to you and say, hey, we can save you money, but for somebody to come and say, you can cut your spend in half, your spend with us in half by doing things a different way. Just a great low-cost focus and a great customer focus.
And this is really aligned to Kmart Group's sort of mission statement and your goals, is that right?
Yeah, so most retailers around the world will be looking to give great products at a great price for their customers. And we're no different. We want to give lowest prices to our customers and technology to enable that. So within the technology team itself, we want to implement technology to be efficient. so that we can lower our costs, so that we can invest in price for our customers and just make our customers' lives that little bit better.
Awesome. And as a technical account manager for a couple of years, this is a topic that's really near and dear to my heart, this cost optimization piece. And what I've noticed is it's kind of a really good way to show our customers and our large enterprises that we don't want to be just a vendor, but we want to be a partner. And I think this might be where you guys realize that, working with AWS and really sort of stepping out into that bigger journey with AWS might be the right thing to do.
Yeah, we went all in on AWS. I mean, I wish I had every other vendor and every other partner we work with say, hey, here's how I can save you money and actually do it. So we decided to go all in. We're single cloud focused at the moment. It's AWS, and one of the number one question I get asked is the A stands for Amazon. So why are you dealing with a competitor? So I mean, Amazon is a retail force worldwide and probably one of the best retailers in the world, and we've got aspirations to be one of the best retailers in the world and build a world-class retail organization. And if you want to compete with the best, then you should have the best people and you should be using the best tools. And the AWS tool set and the breadth and the depth of services that AWS provides is world class. So we've got our eye on bigger ambitions, and we want to use the best tools and resources that are available to us.
All right, so we're doing cost optimization. We're leveraging the best tools and services in the world. That must mean we've got some production workloads operating. Can you talk a bit about what we're doing in AWS in the journey?
Yes, we can. So we started off with our data and building a Nextgen data platform. So our data tells us a lot of stories and tells us a lot about what our customers are doing and what our customers want. And the speed of your decision making can move at the speed of your data. So if your data is 3 days out of date or a week out of date, then how can you make real-time decisions with that? So we focused on data. Being companies that are 50 and 90 years old, I mean, you're going to have a lot of older systems as well, which are monolithic. Data is trapped inside. Customer journeys and customer experiences are trapped inside. So we really wanted to get a horizontal view of our customers.
And I really like this story because, when I hear this word horizontal coming from a tech background, I think of scale out workloads, right? That horizontal scaling. But getting a horizontal view from your data is a totally different topic. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so our organizational structure and the tools that we have and the application architecture that we have really meant that we were getting vertical in-lane views of our customers and what they were doing. And what we're looking for is that end-to-end view of a customer journey from the time they begin to interact with us to all the way through to post-purchase. So how we attract when they're shopping with us and post-shop, how are we dealing with them?
Awesome. So when you set off on this goal, this data, this horizontal view of your data, did you know that it was going to turn into this full-blown transformation that you're undergoing right now?
Yeah, well, absolutely. We weren't expecting a transformation, so that was one of the reasons we did it. We didn't want to go and invest all this time in education, bridging the skills gap, only for things to remain the same. We actually really wanted a transformation. Our number one asset is our people. We want Kmart to be a great place to work. We want to build a world-class retail technology organization. So we set out to certify 100% of our team in cloud technologies, which would make us the first retailer, maybe even the first company in the world to have 100% of the team certified in cloud technologies. Yeah, so that was certainly from a transformation perspective, that was something that we really wanted to do.
Awesome. So we aimed to invest in our people and bridge this skills gap, and we did that with our community called Spark. Now, when I heard the name Spark, I thought it was perfect, right? It really identifies what we're trying to do, sort of ignite that spark, get that sort of innovation, that culture of innovation and experimentation, get people using these technologies and innovating on behalf of our customers. But later I learned that Spark is actually an acronym, and I think James in the audience here came up with the acronym. Can you tell us what it stands for?
Yes, I can. So before, actually, Spark was really about building a community, and like all good communities, we didn't want it to be a top-down community. We actually wanted to be built from the bottom up. We wanted the teams to self-form. We wanted to be self-guided, and we wanted to be self-driven, including the name. So I think we came up with, I'm not sure it was an acronym or a backronym. I think we came up with the name Spark, and then we figured out what it meant later on. And James must be a Harry Potter fan, because it stands for the Society for the Proliferation of AWS Resources within Kmart. Did I get that right? That was it. But really it's about igniting igniting the spark within the whole team. You know, if you ask, were we expecting a transformation? Change is happening rapidly around the world. Our customers' expectations are changing. There's new competitors are changing. There's new competitors in the market that we're dealing with. You know, whether our customers' expectations of frictionless experiences because they got an Uber to the store or home from work. Their expectations around range because they have Netflix at home. It's changing and changing rapidly, and as retailers, we need to be ready to change with them. Initially, when we talked about moving to the cloud, we probably did what a lot of people did. We built a cloud center of excellence, led by some of the team here. But really, when we did that, that just became an excuse then for someone who wasn't in the cloud center of excellence to say, well, I don't need to do it, there's somebody else to do that for me. So it became a reason to not do things rather than a true enabler. So earlier this year, we were at the AWS Summit in Sydney, and we met your team, the Cloud Guild team, and talked, and we looked at what other people were doing and how people were enabling their teams and helping to bridge the skills gap. The skills that we have today don't match the jobs of tomorrow. And it's one of the things even on the United Nations learning agenda is how do we get people fit for the jobs of tomorrow? And this is one of the things that we're doing for our team. So we sat around, we got the team together and said, what do you think is an acceptable number? And as we bounced around, we said, well, let's go for 100%. Let's get every single person in the team certified. But certification is just one thing. There's a whole heap of things that go around tooling, the culture that you bring, the organizational structure, a whole heap more. You guys actually helped guide us on this, so you're probably better qualified to talk about this than I am.
Thank you very much. So yeah, we think that there is sort of three major pillars to really focusing on this enablement skill. And when I met you about 6 months or so, my team, the AWS Skills Guild, we were brought in to really help focus on that one aspect of your overall transformation, which is that upskilling at scale. I mean, with the ingress of cloud, there are so many technologies, there's so much to learn, and you need those skills. And we've been achieving that goal through our formal instructor-led training, through getting certifications, and really just spreading this cloud fluency throughout Kmart Group, not only in the technical staff, but the business staff as well. So once we get that enablement going and people are getting these skills that I like to think of as answering the question of how do we cloud, what are those best practices and those architectures, we're on the right path. That's the first pillar of a guild. But there's another question that we really need to think about, we need to ask ourselves, and that question is just as important, and it's how do we cloud here? How do we use cloud at Kmart Group? What are our processes and procedures? What are our security requirements? A simple question like, how do I move an application from dev and test in through production is a question that AWS can't answer for you. This is a question that only Kmart Group can answer for themselves. And trying to answer that question of how do we cloud here is really what forms the basis of a community. It's all of the learnings that we're getting throughout the organization and sharing those learnings with each other. So this community in Kmart has sort of taken the form of both informal and formal sessions and events and breakouts and things similar to what we're doing here today, where everybody at Kmart Group comes to learn, comes to teach, and comes to celebrate, right? And really what it materializes in is this really effective way of people collaborating together and sharing across silos, across business and across tech. So that's really our second pillar of Guild, is building out these communities where we're answering the question of how do we cloud here at Kmart. But of course, if we want all this to be successful, we need the third pillar, which is the marketing aspect. If we're not generating excitement and telling people what it is we're doing and how we're doing it, what we aim to achieve with it, and importantly, how everybody can get involved in it. Because everybody has experience, and whether you're just starting out or you're an absolute pro, there's something that you can share. And that sharing might be wins that we've had or applications that we've put to production, and it could just as easily be failures and what we learned from those failures when we were trying and experimenting. So that's sort of the formula that we put to work in Kmart Group Australia. And so far, it seems to be just going absolutely gangbusters and spiraling out of control in the best way possible. So can you tell us a little bit about where we're at today with all of this?
Yeah, sure. So it was around about, I think it was the 1st of June, we actually said, well, let's try and get 100% of people certified. And early on, when we started, I'd say we were down around 1%. It was pretty low. I think today we're up at about 85% of all the staff in technology have become certified in AWS in the last 5 months, and we got a month ago, and I'm pretty confident we'll hit 100%. I could probably tell you actually a couple of stories about some of the people that have become certified. So on the right-hand side is my executive assistant, Monica, the best EA in Australia, I'd say. So when we said we wanted everybody certified, we meant everyone. So that included the executive assistants in the company. The help desk, service desk, anybody who has anything to do with technology is now certified in AWS. It means it's changing the nature of the conversations that we can have. So my EA can have an intelligent conversation and is cloud fluent with the rest of the technology company. It's also a great demonstration of how we're investing in our people. We said we want Kmart to be a great place to work. We will invest in skills development, invest in skills training, and invest in the tools and enablement for our teams. Second person to call it would be Stacey in the middle. Stacey's been with the company nearly 40 years. Yeah. And that wouldn't be atypical of the team that we have in Target and Kmart. People love working at Kmart, people love working at Target, and they stay for a long time. But we need to make sure that we've got a duty as employers to make sure that we're keeping our team skills fresh. So Stacey is somebody else. So she went and did her exam and passed with flying colours. But there will be a number of people like Stacey where this is the first exam that they've done since they've left high school 35, 40 years ago. That's a terrifying experience if you're trying to get your team. So, now, I'm certified. Our CEO, the CEO of the group, has become certified. He's probably the first CEO in Asia to be certified in cloud technologies. But not everybody is like Stacey. I know there are people that are sitting the exam and haven't told anybody else they're going to sit the exam because they're terrified of failing. So I'm just wondering, are there hidden behaviors then elsewhere in our organization? So failure and experimentation and innovation are inseparable. So if you're afraid to fail, then you're probably afraid to innovate. So it's given me an insight into the culture that we have within our team and helping us actually change and transform that culture. So we're trying to build a team that is learning fit. So by the end, in a month's time, 100% of people in technology will have been through a training program, had to sit an exam, and they're not particularly easy exams either. But it's just changing their mindset. And once people get through that and get past their exam, it gives them a new lease of life, absolutely a new lease of life. An example of someone then who probably had that, so it comes from a younger generation, has that already, is Ramesh on the left-hand side. And he had a completely opposite approach to certification. We said, we're going to get everybody certified, and he went out 2 days later and took the exam. Yeah, he was going to fail. He knew he was going to fail. He walked into that exam with the expectation that he was going to fail, but he was going to learn what was the most efficient way for him to pass the exam. So his self-worth is not tied to a piece of paper or an arbitrary passing of the exam. He said, I will be more efficient. I've got to get through this thing quickly because I've got a lot of work. And the most efficient way for me to do this is to go out and take the exam. So again, a different operation. And it gave us an opportunity to be able to go and celebrate failure. So again, Andy Jassy, I think it was yesterday, talked about, or it was Miriam McLemore, talked about how in Amazon people talk about the Fire Phone, which was a massive failure because it was experimentation. We talk about Ramesh, who went out and deliberately failed because it was a great way to get him certified. And then the last person who's up there was one of our team associates from one of our stores in Darwin, which is in the middle of Northern Australia. It's Crocodile Dundee country up there. So we have people in stores now who are now certified in cloud technology. And it's become viral. It's gone outside the technology team. We've got people in buying, in merchandise, property, finance who are going through this. And just yesterday, our VP of Merchandise Planning actually became certified just yesterday while we're over here. So he might be back here next year.
Gone viral. I like the idea of that, and that really shows the community at work, right? We've built this excitement. People understand what we're doing, and they want to be a part of it, right? And so if you've got folks in stores who really don't have day-to-day contact with the technology. They're not building applications. They're not maintaining the operations. They're just using them, but they really want to understand what's going on, and they want to be a part of this. So the excitement is there, the interest is there, and everybody's on board to get certified. And I know you guys keep a real-time dashboard of our certifications by group, and I concur with you. We are going to hit that target of 100% certified by the end of the year. We're tracking along it very, very nicely, which is fantastic. So we've undergone this transformation, right? We've really focused on bridging the skills gap and enabling, not just through certification, but through community and excitement, 100% of our tech staff. Has this had any real impact or outcome for Kmart and Kmart's customers?
Yeah, well, certainly. We're not doing it just for the sake of becoming certified, although it is quite nice to be first in the world. Everything that we're doing is to deliver better outcomes for our customers. So we will measure our success by the speed of innovation that we deliver to our customers, and we deliver some significant things in the last 6 months. So the first thing is if you go to the session that Adrian's running later on, we've got an event-driven data lake where we're pumping all of our data in now, and we are live streaming our point-of-sale data. So last week, so Black Friday last week and Cyber Monday this week, we've been able to present a self-service dashboard to our merchants, inventory planners, where they can actually monitor what's going on throughout the country. So Australia is about the size of the US, so every store around the country, we can monitor real time what people are doing. I think Adrian's going to demonstrate that later on, so may the demo gods be with you. We're going to have somebody in a store in Australia. It's now Thursday morning in Australia, so we're coming to you from the future with a live demo. I'm going to try and show, but again, this time last year it was at least a day out of date, and in some cases 6 or 7 days out of date. So that was the first thing. We're going to re-platform our online websites, and we're looking to take a cloud-first approach. We've built an AI proof of concept already. We're planning a forecast and recommendation engine, again, that's come out of the work that we've done. We want to completely modernize the heart and soul of our company, which is our merchandise application. I'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. There was a lot of focus yesterday on SageMaker and the machine learning updates and new services that AWS is releasing. We'll be paying particular interest because that's something that is dear to our heart. We have been building our own machine learning models to predict and forecast what people are going to buy and where, in what colors, in what size. So we've actually been redirecting clothing all around the country in Australia to different stores, so that we know that particular colors sell in different regions, sizes sell in different regions, style sells in different regions. So to make sure that we have what customers want, when they want it, how they want it, we've got it in the right space. So again, taking a great ML approach to that. And it's not just for hardcore development teams or cloud architects. We've had one of our development teams has been through the training and then come back and said, hey, we're going to try spot instances, and they've managed to reduce our compute cost by 70%. So there's a direct link between training and certification to cost reduction. Somebody else has also had a look at the storage. So we've gone from near real-time storage to Glacier storage, and Glacier is a bit of a misnomer. It's a second. And we've reduced our storage cost by 90% in that. So it's not just for cloud architects.
Awesome, and I love that Kmart Group takes all of these savings and you really do pass them on to your customers. It's what you guys are always looking to do. So we set some aggressive targets, certify 100% of our people, build this new data platform from scratch, and we can see that there's real outcomes, not only for Kmart Group, but for Kmart's customers. It's clear that it's happening already in just a short time that we've been working together. I imagine since we're achieving these targets so smoothly and seamlessly, we've got some more big targets ahead of us. Is that right?
Yeah, sure. So I said one of the things we want to do is modernize our merchandise system. So it's the heart and soul of any retailer there. Our product registration, ordering, replenishment, supply chain systems. And we've got a nice new shiny mainframe box, but the applications technology that's running in that box is more than 40 years old. It's older than me. I actually feel quite nice about that, saying I've got somebody older than me, but I'd really like to be able to say, we actually have it's something nice and modern. So we're going to virtualize the mainframe early next year, so that's already underway. So we will actually just take it straight up and run it in the cloud using an emulator, and that's going to give us a huge saving. We pay $500,000 a month. Yeah, so we're paying $25,000 every workday for this, and that cost will drop. It won't drop to zero, but it'll be a significant saving. And the saving that we will make out of that, we will use to invest then in actually completely modernizing, re-architecting, and rebuilding our merchandise and the heart and soul of our company, using a set of microservices, modern architectures, and new ways of working. Okay?
Awesome.
Just so we can deliver, we really want to deliver better outcomes and experiences for our customers, and this is going to take us on leaps and bounds.
That is awesome, and I've really enjoyed being a part of your journey. I can't wait to continue to be a part of your journey and see how you guys move along with these goals. Thank you again so much for sharing this piece of your transformational journey that Kmart Group Australia is going on. I really appreciate your time, and with that, we're going to introduce to the stage Jesse Carstens, who's going to talk about one aspect of his transformational journey to the cloud.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jesse Carstens with Deckers Brands, and we're going to talk a little bit about our transformation. So about a year ago, we started going down this journey of moving our applications up to AWS, and I want to share some of that with everybody here. First, before we get started, I want to talk about Deckers Brands, who we are. We're actually a branded manufacturer of a portfolio of niche footwear brands. So we own Teva, Sanuk, Hoka, Koolaburra, and UGG products. And all of our products have different technologies built into them, which our customers come to enjoy, and that's what makes the brands. Also, all of our customers interact with our products through different channels, through our different areas of the business, and different technologies on how they interact with it as well. A little bit about being Deckers and our mission statement. We give people the freedom to do what matters most to them. We give them the freedom to be who they want to be, to follow their passions, and to be the best person. And that extends to our internal staff as well, where they live this day in and day out. So my role at Deckers is I'm the global director of our Omni application technology and our e-commerce operations as well. We have a regional presence in North America, in EMEA, and in APAC. So our technologies and our operations go across the globe. Inside my areas, again, e-commerce operations sits inside there. We also do some RPA automation to automate business processes to take some of that mundane work off of the workload. We also have a suite of applications that we've built out over the years, which powers our business. We built out our own order management system. We built out a global payment gateway so that wherever you're at in the globe, you can transact in your favorite form of payment. We've standardized our inventory to where we can take inventory from multiple locations. We can aggregate that, apply business rules to it, and then push that out to its end source. We have layers of order routing to help optimize the business and to drive better decisions. And if anybody's in the e-commerce space, everybody's chasing this cost-effective speed to the customer. So we've got rules and engines that help power that to drive down our freight costs and increase the speed to the customer. All of our customer communications, whether it be emails or SMS, through order status, tracking of their packages, all that stuff goes through our applications. And our customer care teams, they leverage our applications to service the customers. So we've put that view of the customer, that view of the order, and tools for them to be able to service the customer easily at their fingertips. And then our Omni platform, which helps bridge that gap between both our digital and physical. So leveraging our physical footprint to deliver those experiences like the buy online, pick up in stores, and the ship to stores, and the ship from stores, and leveraging even beyond our own brick and mortar stores. So kind of where we started, or where we came from inside our space was, and some of you probably feel you grew up in the same area, we started off as a middleware. So we sat between the front end of the websites and our ERP system and really facilitated that communication between the systems. Through our grassroots approach, we were able to satisfy those cross-channel tools. We were able to standardize our third-party integrations, focus on those regional dependencies and exploit the areas where it's different in each region to where customers interact differently. Our applications are used by pretty much every area of the business to help day-to-day activity, drive insights, business decisions, stuff like that. Optimizations we've built out through that. And a lot of these things that I've mentioned, there's a lot of vendors out there that offer solutions for some of this stuff. And every company has to make the decision, do they build versus buy? And in our particular case, we felt that building this stuff out ourselves does create a competitive advantage for us so that we can have an ecosystem that's very specific to our customers, to our products, and how people interact with us. So with that being said, that's all great. However, it does come with its own bag of challenges. So growing up in that middle space and having the front end and the back end with tight integrations, it's created these deep dependencies between the systems, and it makes it hard to move quickly. Additionally, you're bound to other systems release processes when you do start bridging those gaps there. In our particular space, we like to release code a couple times a week, whereas if we're going to start to do stuff that impacts other areas, we could get into their release schedule, and that could slow things down up to 2 months in some cases. We're just coming out of Cyber 5, so that's big time for e-commerce. We've observed over the years, we plan, we prepare, and we've observed just our on-prem servers start to get maxed out on those 5 to 6 days, so it's hard to have a sustainable system that handles the traffic, to the point that we've added CPU power, we've added RAM, but we also have all of our programmers just monitoring the system, pausing jobs, letting queues through, just so that they can orchestrate the transactions going through. And that's not a sustainable model either going forward. And then the regional latency. If you think of the North America sites as the mothership of the business, somebody shopping in the US that hits our site gets a very snappy and speedy transaction. However, you start to step away from that. The Canada sites get a little bit slower. The EMEA sites get a little bit slower. And then when we get to Japan, it gets even slower yet. So all those areas are challenges that we've had to face with this. So we sat back and identified, how do you fix this? And the easy answer is just decouple, just unplug everything from everything and just remove those dependencies. So we sat down as a team and identified, what does decoupling actually mean? How are we going to decouple? And it actually turned into, we have to modernize to decouple. It's not just as easy as unplugging things. You have to relook at everything you've done. How have you gotten to this point, and do it differently? So our teams came up as kind of a .NET shop. We built everything inside C#. If you look to the left, that big blob kind of represents our current library of code. When we push our applications, we push that blob of code. Even in that creates its own layer of risk, because you have to have the right teams in place to be able to, if you're gonna release quickly, to be able to test everything, do proper regression testing, make sure that there's no impacts to the other areas of the business. And sometimes there is, and sometimes it's not detected for a while. So in the approach we've taken, we've decided to go to a microservice, serverless first approach inside of AWS. And in our CI/CD pipeline, which is reflected in the individual blue bars, we started to break every service out into its own individual microservice. That's allowed us to simplify our integrations. We can now start to build regional services that we can build here but deploy in other regions so that they have the same level of non-latency that we experience here, not impacting the customer experience. We reduce the risks, and we're able to partition off our developers and iterate on services a lot more quickly. That way, they can focus on delivering innovation through those individual services. The very important one is moving at the speed of the customer. When you do have those type of ties or dependencies, it's hard for you to move at the speed of your customers because they're evolving much faster than any of our technologies are. and their demands are as well. And as we're able to build out these microservices, we're able to have them then start to speak to ML models, AI models, and enrich them with better decision-making models inside of them. The journey to get here, we had to address a few things. So people, process, and technology is pretty standard when you want to make a big shift or transformation of the sort. I'll talk a little bit about what we experienced and kind of some of the ways we mitigated some of that. So on the people side, first of all, business support, you have to be able to articulate why we're doing this, going to somebody and saying, we're going to decouple. They're like, great. What does that mean? But we're also going to rebuild everything so we can move faster, we can be more agile, we can remove our dependencies. So once you get that business support, it's a relatively easy conversation at that point. On the change management side, coming from a .NET C# background, all of my programmers have had years and years and years of developing one way of doing things. And now we're doing everything different. We're going to rebuild it. We're going to go to this microservice. We're going to AWS. It's going to be great. And everybody in the room says, I'm scared, right? So that's something that had to be addressed as well. And a lot of that was addressed through the training. So the approach we took once we identified the direction we were going to go is we took kind of a wide view of AWS, because if you go into the console, there's so many services and can be daunting to anybody new to the world, and got everybody certified in their cloud practitioner to give them a very wide view of what is offered there. But then we actually started going to POCs and started to build stuff out and narrow that lens on what are the actual capabilities that we're going to be using for building out 80% of our microservices. Going through those POCs was a pretty neat experience, because in our stand-ups with our programmers, you'd hear stuff like, wow, this is incredible, this is powerful, this is going to be a game changer. And even like, look what I just built in like 10 minutes. So it really accelerated some of that innovation as well and allowed them to get hands-on with it and get that excitement around it. So that fear changed into excitement through that process. On the process side, I spoke about the decoupling, but really the definition. What are you trying to achieve here? So we're going to modernize to decouple, we're going to change the way we do things, and we're going to do it all over again, right? Through that process, we came up with some guiding principles that we wanted to follow as we went down this process. And one specifically that I'll call out here that's very relevant to the AWS space is that we want to build differentiators and buy commodities. We know that in the application development that you have to do basic stuff like queuing and messaging and logging, but none of that stuff actually is a differentiator to your customers. It has to be done, but there's no reason why we should build that stuff out and waste valuable time and energy on making that stuff work, and then support tickets and help desk on legacy or logging databases blowing up. So the nice thing about AWS is a lot of that stuff is out of the box. It's just part of the ecosystem. So we can focus on the services that our customers are expecting and drive innovation through those. And then accelerators. So we were fortunate to be able to work with the ProServe team through AWS to get a resident architect on our team. They came, sat down, understood what our goals were, and then rather than just setting up all of our infrastructure and our services, they sat closely with our team members and did it side by side, documented everything so that when they rolled off, we had full documentation of what had happened, and that alone was a very big differentiator for us to be able to move a lot faster. It was getting that better view of where to go. On the technology side, we started off looking at all the providers, all the cloud providers, the API development tools that claim to get you there a lot quicker, and ultimately landed on AWS for a lot of reasons. It was a pretty easy decision, but the offerings that were inside there, the ease of use, and we had some parity with some of our enterprise teams as well, using some other AWS tools. Through the journey, what I will say is infrastructure was a big piece. And that goes back to some of what we gained from the ProServe side, was that we started doing these POCs, we set up our account structures, and we thought this was going to be the way we were going to go forward, had the right OUs, and it made a lot of sense. As we went through the exercise with the ProServe team, we actually tore everything out and rebuilt it. So it's important to get your infrastructure right to be able to satisfy your business needs and make sure that you can scale for the future as well, because nobody wants to go back and rebuild all of your OUs and account structures and set up all your networking stuff again. And then focusing on what that toolbox is. So again, you have a big, wide net of offerings that AWS offers, but nobody's going to use all of those all the time. So understanding what the right tools are for the right service, for the right time, what are your goals inside that individual microservice and when to use which ones, and having a good roadmap on building out these services. So where we're at, we started off as this little .NET shop at a group of C# programmers. But we've added this layer around our ecosystem now to give us those commodities or those enablers to be able to move a lot faster and more rapidly through the AWS tools. So what that's done as well for us is it's allowed us to not only add AWS tools that come out of the box, but we can take a more agnostic approach to building out our services and start to leverage team members from other technology spaces to build out services as opposed to just building out C#. And we don't have to have this small pool of developers or resource constraints or try to get a very specific type of developer. We can actually build services in any type of language. So as I wrap this all up, my advice to everybody is go. We went through a lot of those steps as a team, and it felt like the right steps. And even to this date, there's still apprehension. When we got our first service out, everybody sitting in the room was like, I'm not going to push the first service production. So you have that level of apprehension. And at the same time, a lot of people have the mentality of developing in an old manner to where this is the perfect end state of it, and we're going to build this or we're not going to push it. And what we gained with the microservicing and the AWS is to be able to get out that MVP or get out just that first piece of what we're trying to achieve and then continue to iterate on it. Don't be scared to fail at first. We actually pushed out one of our first services and monitored it. And then through like 2 or 3 checkboxes and features inside AWS, we were able to tweak it more to be able to perform better, reduce the cost. So a lot of that stuff's at your fingertips, but you don't necessarily need to think about all that up front. You need to actually get the stuff out there running, working before you start to worry about that stuff. What I can say is it's a very rewarding experience to see one of your serverless microservices go from 2 concurrent instances to auto-scaling to 37 in milliseconds without any latency to customers, and then scaling back down in 10 to 15 minutes when it's gone through all the volume. And knowing that technology actually functions as it was intended when you build it and being able to see that live is a super neat experience. So I appreciate your guys' time. That's all I had. Just want to share a little bit of the journey. And thank you.
Great. Well, again, thank you all so much for your time. I really appreciate it. Give us about 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and we'll be down in the retail lounge if anybody has questions or wants to come by and chat. The retail lounge, for everybody's reference, is right across from the escalators where you come in to the convention center on the first floor, so near the registration desk. Thank you all so much. Bye.